I thought I knew my wife after 18 years of marriage. When she promised a quiet gathering with coworkers while sending me and our autistic son away, I trusted her. But something felt off, so I came home early. What I found in my kitchen made my blood boil. Months of lies that would destroy everything. My name is Michael Thompson, but everyone calls me Mike. I'm 42 years old, and I run a pest control business here in suburban Phoenix. It's not glamorous work, but it pays the bills and keeps our family comfortable. Jen works as a coordinator at a nonprofit downtown, something she's passionate about. We've got Tyler, our 10-year-old son who's on the autism spectrum. He's a bright kid, loves trains, and knows more about locomotives than most grown men. Taking care of him requires patience and routine, which both Jen and I learned to provide over the years. That Friday evening started like any other. I was finishing up a job at Mrs. Henderson's place, termites in her garage, when Jen called around 5:30. "Hey, honey." Her voice sounded unusually cheerful, almost too bright. "Listen, some of the girls from work want to get together tonight. Nothing big, just a quiet little gathering at our place. Maybe order some pizza, catch up on things." I wiped the sweat from my forehead, loading my equipment back into the truck. "Sounds nice. How many people we talking about?" "Oh, just a few. Sarah from accounting, maybe Lisa and her husband, you know how it is. Very low-key." She paused for a moment. "Actually, why don't you take Tyler to your brother's for the night? You know how he gets with strangers in the house, and it might be good for you too to have some guy time." That should have been my first red flag. Jen knew Tyler's routine was sacred, especially on weekends. Disrupting it for a casual get-together seemed odd, but she had a point about the noise level affecting him. "You sure? It's pretty last minute to dump him on Danny." "I already called. Danny said it's perfect timing. He wanted to show Tyler his new model train set anyway." Everything seemed reasonable enough. Jen had been working hard lately, dealing with increased responsibilities at the nonprofit. She deserved a night to unwind with friends, and Tyler would love spending time with his uncle, especially if trains were involved. "All right," I said, starting up the truck. "I'll swing by, grab Tyler, and head over to Danny's. You ladies have fun." "Thanks, Mike. You're the best. Love you." "Love you too." As I drove home, something nagged at me. Maybe it was the way she'd been so quick to arrange Tyler's sleepover, or how she seemed almost eager to get us both out of the house. But I pushed those thoughts aside. After 18 years together, you learn to trust your partner, right? If only I'd known then what I was about to discover. I dropped Tyler off at Danny's around 7:30. My brother was excited to show off his new addition to the model train collection, a detailed replica of a 1950s diesel locomotive that Tyler immediately gravitated toward. Watching my son's face light up as he examined every detail of that train, I felt good about the decision to bring him over. "Thanks for taking him on short notice," I told Danny as we stood in his garage-turned-train room. "Are you kidding? Tyler's great company. We'll probably be up till midnight talking about horsepower and gear ratios." Danny grinned, ruffling Tyler's hair gently. "You go enjoy your evening off." The plan was to grab a beer with some buddies, maybe catch the game at Murphy's Tavern. But as I drove away from Danny's house, that nagging feeling from earlier returned stronger than before. Something about Jen's phone call just didn't sit right. She'd been so insistent about getting Tyler and me out of the house, almost like she was eager for us to leave. I tried calling my buddy Rick to see if he wanted to meet up, but it went straight to voicemail. Same with Tom. Great. Here I was with a free evening and nowhere to go. That's when I remembered I'd left my good drill in the garage, the Milwaukee one I'd need for tomorrow's job at the Petersons' place. The house was only 15 minutes away. I'd just swing by, grab the drill, and maybe stick around to say hi to Jen's work friends, show my face, be the supportive husband for a few minutes, then head out. As I turned onto our street, something immediately caught my attention. Cars. Lots of them. Our quiet suburban block looked like a shopping mall parking lot on Black Friday. I counted at least 8 vehicles I didn't recognize lining both sides of the street near our house. For a small gathering of work friends, this seemed like overkill. I parked 3 houses down, unable to get closer to my own driveway. Walking toward the house, I could hear music, not the soft background jazz Jen usually played for dinner parties, but something with a heavy beat that you could feel in your chest from the sidewalk. "What the hell?" I muttered under my breath. The front windows glowed with warm light, and I could see silhouettes moving around inside. Way more silhouettes than a few girls from work would account for. My wife promised a quiet party with friends, but when I showed up unexpectedly, I was starting to realize how wrong I'd been about what was actually going down. I approached the front door, my key in hand, but hesitated. Part of me wanted to knock first, give Jen a heads up that I was back. But this was my house, damn it. I shouldn't have to announce myself at my own front door. Taking a deep breath, I turned the key and stepped inside. The scene that greeted me was nothing like what Jen had described on the phone. The scene inside my house hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't a quiet gathering of work friends. This was a full-blown party. Strangers filled every corner of my living room, drinks in hand, laughing and talking over music that was way too loud for a suburban Friday night. The smell of alcohol and expensive cologne hung heavy in the air. I stood in my own doorway feeling like an intruder. These weren't the middle-aged nonprofit workers I'd expected to see. Half the crowd looked like they'd stepped out of some upscale nightclub. Younger guys in designer shirts. Women in dresses that cost more than my monthly truck payment. That's when I spotted Jen. She was standing by the kitchen island, and she wasn't alone. Some guy I'd never seen before was leaning against the counter next to her, standing way too close for my comfort. He was younger than me, maybe mid-30s, with the kind of lean build that screamed gym membership and the kind of smile that spelled trouble. His hand was resting on the small of Jen's back like he belonged there. But what really got to me was how Jen was responding. She was laughing at something he'd said, that genuine laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in months. Her body language was all wrong, leaning into him, touching his arm when she talked, looking up at him with an expression I used to think was reserved for me. I felt my hands clench into fists. 18 years of marriage, and I'd never seen my wife look at another man like that. I started moving through the crowd, my pest control work having taught me to navigate tight spaces efficiently. People stepped aside without really noticing me, just another guy at the party. But as I got closer, I could hear their conversation. "You're terrible, Marcus," Jen was saying, playfully swatting his chest. "I can't believe you said that to your boss." Marcus. Even his name sounded like trouble. What can I say? Life's too short to play it safe all the time. His voice was smooth, confident. Sometimes you gotta take what you want. The way he looked at her when he said that made my blood boil. This wasn't innocent workplace banter. This was flirting, plain and simple, happening right in my kitchen while I was supposed to be safely tucked away at my brother's house. "Jennifer." My voice cut through their conversation like a blade. They both turned, and I watched the color drain from Jen's face. For just a second, she looked terrified. Then, like flipping a switch, she forced that fake smile I'd learned to recognize over the years. "Mike, you're back early." Her voice was too bright, too cheerful. "I thought you were spending the evening with Tyler and Danny." Plans changed. I kept my eyes locked on hers, then shifted my gaze to Marcus. "And who's this?" Marcus didn't seem bothered by my sudden appearance. If anything, he looked amused, like he was enjoying some private joke. He extended his hand with the kind of confidence that immediately rubbed me the wrong way. "Marcus Delacroix. I work with Jennifer at the foundation." His handshake was firm, probably meant to be intimidating. "She's told me so much about you." I bet she had. Funny, she's never mentioned you. I looked back at Jen, who was fidgeting with her wine glass. I thought this was supposed to be a small gathering of the girls from work. "Well, you know how these things go," Jen said quickly. "Word got around. People brought friends. It just grew. I repeated the word slowly, letting it hang in the air. "Into what exactly? Because this looks more like a nightclub than a quiet get-together." Marcus chuckled, actually chuckled, like my obvious irritation was entertaining to him. "Hey man, no harm in people having a good time, right? Life's meant to be enjoyed." I turned my full attention to him. 20 years of dealing with difficult customers and tense situations had taught me how to read people, and this guy was trouble with a capital T. Everything about him screamed player, from his perfectly styled hair to his expensive watch to the way he kept his hand possessively near Jen's back. "You seem pretty comfortable in my house," I said, my voice level but carrying an edge. "How long have you and my wife been working together?" The question hit its mark. Jen's eyes went wide, and Marcus's smile faltered for just a moment before returning. But I caught it, that split second where his mask slipped. "We collaborate on several projects," Marcus said smoothly. "Jennifer's incredibly talented, very dedicated to her work." The way he said dedicated Made me want to deck him right there in my own kitchen. But I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of losing my cool. Not yet. I'm sure she is. I stepped closer, close enough that Marcus had to tilt his head up slightly to maintain eye contact. Tell me, Marcus, do all your work collaborations involve putting your hands on your colleagues? Mike, stop. Jen's voice was sharp now, defensive. You're being ridiculous. Marcus was just Dash. Just what? I cut her off, my patience finally wearing thin. Just getting a little too friendly with my wife while I was conveniently out of the house. Just assuming he could make himself comfortable in my home with my family's belongings. The noise of the party seemed to fade around us as other guests began to notice the tension. I could feel eyes turning our way, conversations quieting. Good. Let them watch. Let them see exactly what kind of man Marcus Delacroix really was. Look, buddy, Marcus said, his tone shifting from smooth to slightly aggressive. I think you're misreading the situation here. Am I? I stepped even closer, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're moving in on another man's wife. And in my experience, that makes you either very stupid or very bold. Which one are you, Marcus? Marcus straightened up, trying to regain his composure, but I could see the calculation in his eyes. He was deciding whether back down or double down on whatever game he'd been playing with my wife. Look, Mike, he said, using my first name like we were old buddies. I think you're getting the wrong impression here. Jennifer and I work together on the youth outreach program. We're just colleagues. Colleagues. I let the word roll around in my mouth like I was tasting something bitter. Is that what you call it when you put your hands all over another man's wife? Mike, please. Jen stepped between us, her voice taking on that pleading tone she used when Tyler was having a meltdown. You're making a scene. These are my co-workers. I looked around at the faces staring back at us. Some looked uncomfortable. Others seemed entertained by the drama unfolding in my kitchen. Either way, I didn't give a damn about their comfort level. How long? I asked Jen directly, ignoring Marcus completely. How long has this been going on? Nothing's going on, she said quickly, but her voice cracked slightly. You're being paranoid. Paranoid. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. My wife throws a party she lied to me about, with people she's never mentioned, and I'm paranoid for noticing that some smooth-talking pretty boy has his hands all over her. Marcus stepped forward again, his jaw tightening. Hey, watch how you talk to her. That did it. The protective tone in his voice, like he had any right to defend my wife from her own husband, snapped something inside me. I moved fast, closing the distance between us until we were nose to nose. Did you just tell me how to talk to my own wife? My voice was deadly quiet. In my own house, I could feel the crowd pressing closer, phones probably coming out to record whatever happened next. But I didn't care. This guy had crossed a line, and somebody needed to put him back in his place. Marcus, don't, Jen said, her hand on his arm. Even now, even with her husband standing right there, she was touching him, trying to protect him. That gesture told me everything I needed to know. So that's how it is, I said, stepping back and looking at both of them. That's really how it is. Jen's face went pale. Mike, you don't understand, Dash. I understand plenty. I pulled out my phone and started dialing. What I don't understand is why you thought you could play me for a fool in my own house. Who are you calling? Marcus asked, some of his cockiness evaporating. The police, I said calmly, to report a trespasser who refuses to leave my property. The effect of my words was immediate. Marcus's face went from confident to concerned in about 2 seconds flat. Several party guests started moving toward the door without being asked. Nobody wanted to be around when the cops showed up. Mike, hang up the phone, Jen said urgently. Please, let's just talk about this. Talk. I looked at her like she'd suggested we all start singing show tunes. You mean like how we talked about your quiet gathering with the girls? That kind of talk. Marcus held up his hands in what was probably meant to be a calming gesture. Look, man, there's no need to involve the police. I'll leave, okay? No problem. Damn right you'll leave. I kept the phone pressed to my ear, even though I hadn't actually placed the call yet. But first, I want some answers. How long have you been sniffing around my wife? It's not like that, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Then what is it like? I stepped closer again. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been using your nonprofit job to get close to married women. Is that your usual game plan, Marcus? Find vulnerable wives and play the sensitive, caring co-worker. His face flushed red. You don't know what you're talking about. don't I? I looked at Jen, who was standing there wringing her hands like she was trying to figure out how to salvage the situation. Tell me, honey, how many late nights has Marcus been helping you with those youth outreach programs? How many times have you two grabbed coffee to discuss strategies? How many text messages about work have you been exchanging? Jen's silence was answer enough. Yeah, that's what I thought. I turned back to Marcus. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk out of my house right now, and you're going to stay away from my wife. Not just socially, professionally too. Find someone else to collaborate with on your projects. You can't dictate who Jennifer works with, Marcus said, trying to reclaim some authority. Watch me. I held up my phone again. I know people in the nonprofit sector, Marcus. People who sit on boards, people who write checks. You'd be amazed how quickly word can spread about an employee who doesn't respect professional boundaries. The threat hit home. Marcus's jaw worked like he wanted to say something, but he was smart enough to realize he was beaten. After a long moment, he turned to Jen. I'll call you later, he said quietly. No, I said firmly, you won't. Marcus shot me one last defiant look, then pushed through the crowd toward the front door. I watched him go, noting how several other guests decided to follow him out. Within minutes, my house had gone from party central to nearly empty. Jen and I stood in our kitchen, surrounded by empty bottles and the wreckage of what had been our marriage, staring at each other across a gulf that felt impossible to bridge. We need to talk, she said finally. Yeah, I agreed. We do. With Marcus gone and the house finally empty, Jen and I stood in our kitchen like two strangers trying to figure out what came next. The silence was deafening after all the noise and chaos. Empty wine glasses and appetizer plates cluttered every surface, evidence of the party that was supposed to be just a few co-workers getting together. Mike, I can explain, Jen said, her voice small and uncertain. Can you? I picked up one of the wine glasses. Expensive stuff, not the kind we usually bought. Can you explain why you lied to me about tonight? Can you explain why you were all over Marcus like some teenager with a crush? Can you explain why you've been living a double life while I've been working my ass off to support this family? She flinched at each question like I was slapping her. Good. Maybe it was time she felt some of the pain she'd been dishing out. It's not what you think, she said weakly. Then tell me what it is. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. Because from where I stand, it looks like my wife has been having an affair with her co-worker while using our son's condition as an excuse to get me out of the house. Don't bring Tyler into this. Tyler's already in this. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. You used him, Jen. You knew I'd agree to take him to Danny's if you said the noise would bother him. You manipulated the situation so you could have your boyfriend over without me knowing. Tears started rolling down her cheeks, but I wasn't feeling sympathetic. Not anymore. How long? I asked again. And don't lie to me this time. I've had enough lies for one evening. 6 months, she whispered. 6 months. Half a year of deception. Half a year of coming home to her every night, kissing her hello, asking about her day, making love to her, planning our future together, all while she was living another life with another man. 6 months. I repeated slowly. Jesus, Jen. 6 months. I tried to stop it, she said, her voice getting stronger, more defensive. I tried to end it multiple times, but Mike, our marriage. When was the last time you looked at me the way Marcus does? When was the last time you made me feel like I mattered? I stared at her in disbelief. Are you seriously trying to blame me for your affair right now? I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying that things between us have been broken for a long time. We're like roommates who happen to share a kid and a mortgage. There's no passion, no excitement, no connection. So you found connection with Marcus? Yes, she said defiantly. I did. He makes me feel alive again. He makes me feel beautiful and desired and important. And what about Tyler? I asked quietly. What about our son who needs both his parents? What about the stability we've worked so hard to build for him? Her face crumpled. I love Tyler. I would never do anything to hurt Tyler. But you'd do something to hurt his father. You destroy his family. You'd risk everything we've built because Marcus makes you feel pretty. I walked over to our kitchen table where Jen kept her laptop and opened it up. She watched me nervously as I pulled up our banking information. What are you doing? She asked. Getting a reality check, I said, scrolling through our accounts. Since you've been so busy feeling alive and beautiful with Marcus, maybe you've forgotten what it takes to keep this life running. I turned the screen toward her. See this? Our mortgage payment, $2,800 a month. My pest control business covers that. This one, Tyler's therapy sessions, $600 a week that my insurance helps with, but I still pay $300 out of pocket. Weekly. Jen looked away, but I wasn't done. Car payments. Both cars, because yours is newer and more reliable for driving Tyler to his appointments. Utilities. Internet, which we pay extra for, because Tyler needs the high-speed connection for his educational programs. Groceries. Special dietary needs aren't cheap. Clothing. Medical expenses. I clicked through screen after screen of expenses. You want to know what your salary covers? Maybe a quarter of our monthly expenses. Maybe. The rest of it comes from me crawling under houses and dealing with termites and rats and whatever else people call me to handle. I know you work hard, Dash. Do you? I cut her off. Because when you're texting Marcus about how alive he makes you feel, I'm working overtime to pay for the life that gives you the luxury of having an affair. I pulled up our retirement accounts, our emergency fund, Tyler's college savings. This isn't just about hurt feelings, Jen. This is about our entire financial future. You want to throw this away for what? Some excitement? Some passion? It's not that simple, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. It is that simple. You had a choice. Work on our marriage or destroy it. You chose destruction. I closed the laptop and looked at her directly. So let's talk about what happens next. What do you mean? I mean divorce, asset division, custody arrangements, child support calculations. I kept my voice businesslike, professional. You want to be with Marcus? Fine. But you're going to find out real quick what your half of this life actually costs. Mike, please. I don't want a divorce. I want to fix this. Fix this. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. How exactly do you propose we fix 6 months of lying and cheating? How do we fix the fact that you chose another man over your husband and your son's stability? We could try counseling. We could work through this together. Together. I shook my head. Together would have been talking to me 6 months ago when you were feeling disconnected. Together would have been marriage counseling before you started your affair. Together would have been honesty. I stood up and headed toward the stairs. I'm going to pack a bag and stay at Danny's tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out how to tell Tyler that his parents are getting divorced because Mommy decided she needed more excitement in her life. Mike, wait, Dash. I'm done waiting, Jen. I'm done being patient and understanding and supportive while you figure out what you want. You made your choice. Now you get to live with the consequences. I spent the night at Danny's, lying awake on his couch while Tyler slept peacefully in the guest room. My brother had taken one look at my face when I showed up with my overnight bag and wisely decided not to ask questions. He just handed me a beer and said the couch was mine for as long as I needed it. Around 6 a.m, my phone started buzzing with texts from Jen. Apologies, explanations, promises to change, threats to fight me on everything if I tried to divorce her. The usual cycle of someone who'd been caught and was desperately trying to regain control of the narrative. I deleted them without reading past the first few words. Tyler woke up early, like he always did, and immediately wanted to show me the modifications he and Uncle Danny had made to the train layout. Watching him explain the new switching system with such enthusiasm, I realized this was what mattered. This kid, his future, his stability. Everything else was just noise. Dad, are you sad about something? Tyler asked, studying my face with that direct way autistic kids have of seeing through adult pretenses. I'm working through some grown-up problems, buddy. But nothing you need to worry about. Is it about Mom? She seemed different yesterday when she was getting ready for her party. Different. Even Tyler had noticed. Kids with autism might struggle with social cues, but they're often incredibly perceptive about changes in routine and behavior. Yeah, it's about Mom. But Tyler, no matter what happens between your mom and me, we both love you more than anything in the world. That will never change. He nodded seriously, then went back to his trains. Crisis management, 10-year-old style. Around 9, Danny emerged from his bedroom with coffee and the kind of expression that said he was ready to listen if I wanted to talk. Jen's been having an affair, I said without preamble. Shit. Danny sat down across from me. How long? 6 months. I caught her last night with a guy at what was supposed to be a quiet gathering of female co-workers. What are you going to do? Divorce. Full custody of Tyler if I can get it. She can have her passion and excitement with Marcus, but she's not dragging our son through the chaos. Danny nodded slowly. You need a lawyer. I need a good lawyer. Someone who understands special needs custody issues. I know someone. Handled my buddy Steve's divorce when his ex tried to relocate their autistic daughter out of state. She's tough as nails and doesn't mess around. Give me your number. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, drinking coffee and watching Tyler rearrange his trains. This was what peace felt like. No drama, no lies, no walking on eggshells around someone else's guilty conscience. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a call, not a text. Jen's name on the screen. I answered. What? Mike, please come home. We need to talk. I ended it with Marcus. I told him I'm choosing my family. Too late, Jen. It's not too late. We can fix this. No, we can't. I'll be by later to get more of my things. Tyler's staying here for now. I hung up and turned off the phone. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment, a smaller place, but clean and quiet and mine. Tyler's room was set up exactly the way he liked it, with his train collection and his books organized just so. He spent weekdays with Jen and weekends with me, a schedule that gave him the consistency he needed while limiting my exposure to my ex-wife's drama. The divorce had been brutal but swift. Jen had tried to fight for everything: the house, full custody, alimony. She'd painted me as a workaholic who cared more about money than family. But her affair with Marcus had been well documented, thanks to several party guests who'd been more than happy to share what they'd witnessed that night. In the end, she'd settled for shared custody and half our assets after the lawyer's fees. Marcus had disappeared from the picture about 2 months into the divorce proceedings. Apparently, the reality of dating a woman going through a messy divorce with a special needs child wasn't as exciting as sneaking around had been. Who could have seen that coming? Tyler was adapting well to the new arrangement. Kids with autism often do better with clear, predictable schedules, and our weekends together had become something we both looked forward to. No tension, no arguments, no walking on eggshells around anyone's mood swings. Dad, I finished my model of the Union Pacific big boy locomotive, Tyler announced, holding up his latest project. Looks perfect, buddy. Want to add it to the layout. We spent the afternoon working on his trains, eating pizza, and talking about everything and nothing. This was what family was supposed to feel like: comfortable, honest, supportive. My business was doing better than ever. Word had gotten around about my reliability and professionalism, and I'd been able to hire 2 part-time employees to help with the workload. The extra income meant I could afford Tyler's therapy sessions without stress and even start saving for his college fund again. Around 5, I got a text from Jen asking if she could pick Tyler up an hour early. Some family thing she wanted to attend. I checked with Tyler, who was fine with leaving early, and packed up his overnight bag. When Jen arrived, she looked different. Older. Maybe you were just tired. The excitement and energy she'd had during her affair period was gone, replaced by something that looked like regret. How's he doing? She asked, watching Tyler gather his train magazines. Good. Really good. He's been talking about trying out for the school science Olympiad team next year. That's wonderful. She paused. Mike, I dash. Don't. I said firmly. We're co-parents now. That's it. Let's keep it professional. She nodded, her face tight. You're right. I want you to know that I know I messed up. I know I threw away something good. Yeah, you did. But Tyler and I are doing fine without the drama. After they left, I sat in my quiet apartment and felt something I hadn't experienced in years: contentment. No anxiety about what mood my partner would be in, no walking on eggshells, no wondering if I was being lied to. Just peace. Tyler was thriving, my business was growing, and I was finally free to build a life based on honesty and respect rather than manipulation and deceit. It had taken losing everything to realize that what I'd actually lost was the weight of carrying someone else's dishonesty. And that was no loss at all.